Greetings, members, one and all of the Salivation Nation. Release the Kraken. The Kraken. Yes, a menacing-looking creature indeed. Most of us in this community are well aware of what the Kraken is, especially as it's being as shown on various different pieces out there of silver and rounds and coins even. We'll explore some of those. But the legend of the Kraken started as an old Nordic legend, Scandinavian, and from the word kraki, and essentially it is a large, menacing octopus. It is a cephalopod who seeks to devour and terrorize sailors at sea, as you can see here in this particular rendering from Metalio Mint on this silver piece. But it is also something that we also see associated with essentially the establishment. And that is kind of what this video is about. There's a message here, and I typically don't wander off on these on main videos, talk a little bit about some of this stuff in sort of a casual sense on my live streams. But this is something a little different because I believe, importantly, this is something that is a message that I think is for everyone, regardless of your political or ideological persuasion. Yea, though this is a politically motivated video. And you can see here in this particular rendering from Silver Shield, this is the Kraken as denoted by the establishment. And that establishment can be perceived whether or not be the monarchy or big government and what have you, or what is known as the administrative state or the deep state. And maybe that's more apropos these days because we are seeing the tentacles of the Kraken intertwine our lives more and more as government grows larger and larger. And even as such, with the Federal Reserve extending its tentacles with the further digitization and printing of money, therefore diluting and taking away the power of spending. This is why we accumulate gold and silver for sure. But in this case, the Kraken is as seen as the establishment and the system and the order of things, and that is something that many of us in this community, in many ways, no matter what your political persuasion, is against. Now, the Kraken in other areas, especially with what we've seen here, is noted as a creature that is going to overtake the sailors at sea. Now, that imagery could still be taken as for when you think about going to sea, you're basically out into the sails, sailing the seas, being free to navigate the waters in any direction that you so desire. And in the old sailors, they basically are going by the wind in the sea, hence the sails that you see here, until the establishment or the Kraken comes in and devours them all and stopping them in their tracks. Here is another example of a much larger creature, going back to the old Nordic legend of the Kraken taking down a Viking vessel in this particular round, showcasing the Kraken and its tentacles, taking and lifting the ship out of the sea and essentially busting it in two. And all of the inhabitants of the ship are falling back down into the great deep, probably to be devoured by the creature. Indeed. Then this example we see from a 2020 Canadian coin that recognizes and sees this on the symmetrical design of the Kraken that has taken and destroyed the ship in two with its tentacles. And so how do you translate this from this Kraken who has made this turnabout, this destruction of this ship? How do we translate that imagery? Now, many of us in this community remember the days when we had the Privateer series. essentially told the story of the ship at sea and the pirates on the ship who were the bad guys. Yes, indeed, the privateers out there doing their thing, some of them doing piracy and the like. Well, what happens? The Kraken comes and destroys their plans. Turnabout is fair play, and the creature of the deep has come in and dismantled, and was about to dismantle this ship here in this particular version that only shows the tentacles of the Kraken, leaving it to some mystery as to the full majesty of the creature that is about to devour this ship. And so it is, the release of the Kraken. Well, that hashtag is probably going to be a thing here, especially with regards to what's happening right now in American politics. But you know what? This also affects politics around the world, especially in nations where there are dictatorships, because there has been a charge put forth by a lady who has been very brave in exposing essentially what has been going on since 2017 against a president who has stood up against the establishment. Like him or hate him, it's President Donald John Trump. And I know that there are many in this community, especially with my viewership. I have a good cross-section of people on both sides of the aisle. But regardless, I believe that even if you are a very liberal person, or a left-leaning, or even a progressive left person, you would probably understand that there is an establishment that is against you as well as against many of us who believe in smaller government and limited government. You have folks like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren who are very much against the establishment. In fact, there are some policies that Bernie Sanders is on par with President Trump on, especially trade. And so it's essentially there are, from both sides of the political spectrum, ideologically, are against what is going on in what we come to affectionately call the deep state. And the deep state is represented here by this ship, and the Kraken has been released upon it, especially now with some legal challenges. I'm going to put a link in the description of this video with an interview from Lou Dobbs to Sidney Powell, who is a name that I believe has started to gain a little bit more notoriety in American politics, as she has represented Michael Flynn in his defense, which many thought was a lost cause. But it turns out that was not the case. She was able to exonerate him by gathering evidence and doing the hard work that most lawyers would not touch with a 10-foot pole. But she did, and she essentially did the impossible in that regard. She has an explosive interview here with Lou Dobbs. I'm going to post the link in the description of this video, and it should make the hair stand up in the back of your neck. And she has a mountain of evidence, and as many have said, and I've talked to at least one member of this community who disagrees with me politically, and who says that this should be investigated, or why aren't there investigations? And that I agree completely with that assessment. There should be investigations, and there should be a full accounting of the vote, and we should count every legal vote and disregard and throw out every illegal vote. It really is that simple. And this is about this particular software called Dominion Voting System, this company, and what's going on in the background of it, and how it is essentially this big, massive system that has enveloped not only our nation, but our other countries, and how this software can be rigged to be able to make the votes count how they want it to. I will admit it's an uphill battle, and I am a realist, and my view is that this may not make it. They may not hear the complexity of these cases, but according to Sidney Powell, who I do believe, there are mounting evidence and affidavits and sworn testimonies, people willing to testify in court under the penalty of perjury to what is going on and what has gone on since election night. And I believe that every American should be concerned about the election of 2020, not only because of these charges, which, yes, you can dismiss them as being political charges, and that this president should essentially just give up and concede. But Al Gore did not concede for over 30 some odd days while there was a recount in 3 counties. We have this thing that's going on in 4 or 5 states where there are legal challenges being set up. And what's different about this election than any other election beforehand is that because of COVID, there were a lot of mail-in ballots, many of them unsolicited, and those have basically overwhelmed the system. And in order to fix those, it's going to take some time. So what do? They just go ahead and include them all. They're about counting every ballot as opposed to counting every vote. There's a huge difference between counting ballots and votes. So watch this interview. It is eye-opening, and I think it should concern every American out there as far as our election systems. Now, it may turn out that if this is investigated, as Sidney Powell thinks it should be, she feels that Donald Trump is going to win in a landslide. But let's say he doesn't. If it's the full accounting and letting the justice system play out as it should, then we should all accept the results, wherever they may go after the fact. But I have some doubts that it's going to get there. It's an uphill battle for everybody involved in this challenge, and I think they realize it. But the fact that the media have ignored and have been after this president and anybody who stands against the establishment, as well as the social media, the big tech companies, the fact that so many have been against this president, and people who stand up against the establishment, Republicans and Democrats, is quite telling. This is why there are many of us Americans who question the legitimacy of our justice system in this country today because of what she says in this interview. But I want to have hope. I want to be able to believe in my government, and I want to be able to believe in true justice and the rule of law under the Constitution. That's what we're fighting for and should be fighting for in a peaceful way, for sure. So check this interview out. What are your thoughts? Is the Kraken going to be released, as you will see here in her interview? Post your thoughts in the comment section below. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch this video, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.